That's what I tell myself every night to go to sleep. You're awesome. All right. So you don't want me to say the episode?
I don't think we need to. It would make things easier in the long run and...
right.
Yeah.
In case we want to shuffle things.
Exactly.
That's fine.
Doesn't pigeonhole us into...
Right.
What, you got something against pigeonholing?
This feels like it's going to get weird.
Yeah.
All right.
We better start quick before this...
Yeah, it's going to derail quickly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We're one in already, so...
Does that mean it's going?
Yes.
I'm already rolling, so you're good.
Perfect. All right. Check Complete, a referee podcast, is an educational resource for referees by referees, designed to connect and develop soccer officials of all ages and skill levels to better serve the game both on and off the field. Welcome back to the Check Complete podcast. Gordie Wetmore here, excited for another episode of what is factually the greatest podcast that's ever been made.
I've heard some things.
Oh boy. No, this is, don't Google this. There's not much data to support it. You won't see it in many places because they're hiding this, but it is the greatest podcast ever made. So I figured I'd just announce that today. But again, please don't look that up because it's hidden. It's like Illuminati or something like that. Like it's not public. So anyway, Gordie alongside Matt Gow.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Dude, so glad to have you here. We've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
College days,
Yeah.
which were just a year and a half ago for both of us.
A couple years ago.
Right?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
I was at the doctor's office the other day and she was like, "What's your birth year?" And I was like, "It just keeps getting further away. Please stop asking me those questions."
I just don't think about it.
I don't, yeah. So we're here with Matt, and Matt has a lot of experience in the game of soccer. So I'll let you do the introduction of yourself.
Yeah, all right. Sure, I'll try. My name's Matt Gow. Been in the game for a little bit. Played college soccer. Mid-American Nazarene University here in Kansas City. And then after that, played for a summer afterwards, spent some time down in Mexico doing some work, and then came back to get my master's degree, and then through that was through coaching. So jumped right into college coaching pretty quickly after college, and so coached here in Kansas City, Mid-America. Then I was able to bounce around a little bit through the college coaching scene. So out in Virginia for a little bit, Virginia Tech, California, University Pacific, and then recently I was a head coach of an NAI program down in Arizona, and then now back in the Kansas City area as a director of a soccer club.
Very good.
Yeah.
So it's come somewhat full circle to where we are today. You're a native of the St. Louis area, is that right?
Springfield, Missouri.
Like I said, Springfield, Missouri.
Yep, same close.
Yeah,
Starts with an S.
Basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So Springfield, my apologies. So Missouri guy, all right, so not too far from us here. Very good. Okay, so life is soccer. Outside of soccer, is there more to Matt Gow?
Yeah, good question. So I have two kids. My wife is from here in Kansas City. I met her when I was back here coaching at Mid-America, and then she was just an incredible wife to be able to follow me around the country to allow me to make soccer my career. And so, you got lucky there, and she followed me around. Now we have two kids, like I said, a kindergartner and a preschooler. But yeah, it's great stuff being back here in the area, families in the area. So excited to be back in Kansas City, but yeah, soccer is what I get to do every day, the good, the bad, the ugly side.
Right.
It's all there. So blessed to be able to do it for a living.
That's amazing. Very good. Well, we're glad to have you in the soccer community in Kansas City, that's for sure. So we're going to dive into this. For those of you that have been engaged with the show for a while, you know that we've had a lot of referees. We've had some that are not referees, and so we'll connect with one who is not actively refereeing right now, someone who comes from a different side of the game, but very much a part of our community. And so I guess that first question is, do you have any refereeing experience at all?
My refereeing experience is just, when I was younger, refereeing youth soccer, youth basketball, just doing the youngers, the non-licensing, working, making money, working for all the, church leagues and local leagues and the recreational leagues. And so getting into that. And then, being a bad ref in training for all my college guys,
Yeah, there you go.
And getting after them and making them hate you, so it's good.
That's perfect. Yeah, good. Thank you for that. Very good. So very limited, but a lot of experience, right? We played for a long time. You were a goalkeeper.
Yep.
So that's interesting. In fact, we have a lot of goalkeepers that actually kind of transition into being pretty good referees just because of seeing the whole field. You have kind of the field vision piece. So
I'm a little biased. Yeah, I think coaches at the same time make really, goalkeepers make really good coaches just because the same thing. You see the game, it's developing, you can see things before they happen.
Yeah.
So I never thought about it as an official, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Same thing with coaching.
Interesting. Yeah. So that connection as well, you're able to see that whole thing and see kind of how the game unravels and have a big picture view, I suppose. And so you had that perspective as a player, and then you've been able to coach at various levels of the game, right? Yeah. So you had that as the assistant coach piece, which we can get into what assistant coach at a collegiate level, what that kind of looks like, because that'll be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, we can get into that. How many yellow cards I took for different head coaches.
Right, that you were the lightning rod of hate, I suppose. And then being more in the head coaching role, and then more recently now being involved really heavily on the youth soccer side and what that looks like and just kind of how things change and adjust and all that kind of stuff. So let's get into, I know we've kind of got an outline here, but we'll see how this goes. Let's get into from your coaching vantage point. You really first, now did you have other coaching opportunities before you started as an assistant coach at Mid-America? Were you doing other things before that?
I mean, I coached youth soccer even when I was in college.
Okay.
So I had a couple club teams my junior year, senior year, all the way into it. Always been coaching.
Okay.
Yeah, my father was a high school coach. Always grew up around coaching.
That.
So
interesting.
Yeah, coaching has been what I've done for a while.
Cool. Okay. So let's dive in. We'll get to the youth stuff in a second, but let's start with coaching at Mid-America as an assistant coach there, where you played. You've already kind of shown your hand a little bit, but what is the role of the assistant coach, and how do you see the assistant coach interact with officials? What is that? Is there a general, like, this is how it's going to go, or is it program by program? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think it is program by program, but also coach by coach. Yeah. Because you have coaches who, if you're a good assistant coach, you're seeing what's lacking in the game, but at the same time, when it comes to relationship with officials, you have some coaches who, when they're maybe stepping over or getting emotions are boiling over, and you're like, listen, I need to step in here, or it's gonna be distractive, right? And we all have those moments where we get so involved in the game and you get lost sight of things. And so, and then I've worked with coaches where I had to step up and take the yellow card, and it's coming, and I'm sure you guys as officials know that thing when it's like, oh, come on, man, I'm yellow carding this guy, but because you're now standing on the sideline and just yelled something and you haven't yelled all half or all game.
Right.
All right, I understand the philosophy here. But so I think it's understanding the temperature of the head coach, understanding the temperature of the game, and also as an assistant coach, is understanding the temperature of the official, because, if the head coach is already barking because there's a certain aspect of the game that we just feel is being neglected or, overseen there. And so if you're also chirping and you notice that the center official, from our perspective as a coach, is maybe easily irritated, and then now you have a second voice saying the same thing, it's just going to create a disaster.
Right.
It's just going to become even worse, or, just bring emotion into the center official, take him away from what he's able to do and the focus he can bring. Or, you see an official who might be able to be responsive and take that information from an assistant, so then you can judge as an assistant, is my second voice also going to bring attention to that, or is it going to bring distraction? And so I think as a assistant, you have to recognize that, like, okay, head coach has it. I can understand they already have a great relationship that's already been connected and established throughout this game. I don't need to say anything. Or if something happened in the match where the head coach and the official have now come to a place of conflict, so now I need to step in because maybe I can be the calmer voice and the voice of reason, where he's actually wanting to hear me or able to hear me, instead of he's already tuned out, the head coach, because they've already come to a place of conflict at some point. Right. So as an assistant coach, you pick your moments and you have to balance that. And sometimes I think I see some younger assistant coaches who are just, and maybe you guys know as officials, but they just become the head coach's echo.
Right.
Ref, what is that? What is that? It's just, that's not a proper way to give balance to a head coach in that situation.
Right. Right. So there's some prominent voices in the collegiate community that have kind of coined a phrase, and I'm going to throw this phrase on you, and I'll see how it fits, and you can give me your reaction.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the phrases that I've heard is assistant coaches get cards, head coaches get conversations.
Yeah.
Meaning I am probably much more likely to listen to and be engaged and have a conversation with the head coach.
Yeah.
But if the assistant coach is going to pipe up and light me up on something, we're probably not going to have a conversation. It's probably going to lead more towards a card.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I can probably appreciate that, because it's kind of just a human nature. If you're 1 versus 1, you feel like you can have a conversation.
Right.
It's when it's 1 versus 1, it's equal. I think maybe human nature, if you feel like it's 2 versus 1, or sometimes even 3 versus 1 in some programs.
Right.
Yeah, you're like, I have an opportunity not to have to listen to this, and I'm not going to listen to it.
Right.
So I can appreciate it.
Right.
I don't. Yeah, it would make sense to me that
Right.
that's a phrase that is being used.
Sure. And I don't know. I mean, it obviously it's adopted in different ways, and like you said, official to official, it's going to be dealt with differently, and it's interesting because it's the same way from our end, right? Like we know the temperament typically, and I think the high school and the college side really allows us to do this because we're going to see you guys multiple times, right? We know the temperament of the coach, and so we know, like, okay, these types of conversations or this type of thing is going to work or not work, or we come in and in fact, I've heard coaches criticize officials because it's like just because they act like a crazy, well, we know they're going to be a crazy person, so we let them start at higher where we'd let maybe you, or we'd let another coach who has a more even-keeled temperament. So it's very interesting, all the different ways that it kind of, I don't know if it's gamesmanship, but it's just human interaction in a competitive environment.
Yeah, no, that makes senes. Another element, as I was thinking about, as you're saying, is this as the assistant coach. I feel like, especially in games where there's a fourth, there should be a strong relationship from the assistant coach and the fourth, from just a management.
Sure.
And I think that in a healthy environment, I've seen that happen quite a bit, where the assistant coach might just be the one that's maybe seated on the bench, and especially in some of those more intimate college environments where it's a lot closer to the fourth, where you can maybe ask questions and then help relay that to the head coach, or give some understanding, just to keep the understanding and temperature at a reasonable level.
Manageable, right? Appropriate. Because I think our goal is we don't expect there to be silence by any means, but it's the large thing, the things that draw attention, big gestures that are unprofessional. It's like, okay, but if you're going to have complaints or frustrations, things, it's like that's expected. That's part of a passionate game. It's just those moments where it's way over the top that it's like, okay, if we don't deal with that right, then it's going to impact the outcome, potentially other players or other coaches or things. But
that makes sense.
So that's kind of on the assistant coaching side, right? Where you existed for a while at a few different schools in different capacities, and so you were able to watch the way programs were run, the way head coaches operated in every facet, right? With the players, off season, everything, but especially observing the way head coaches interacted for the sake of what we're doing here with officials, right? As you went along that journey, was that something you consciously picked up on, or you just I just gathered that information as I went along?
I think it's something that you probably subconsciously pick up through it. You see how just even game day management is done, pre-game management is done, in-game management is done. And part of in-game management, when you're watching some head coaches, and I was blessed enough to be able to work with a lot of really good guys who've found a lot of success at the college level, and they all have different ways of doing everything. And so I think just sitting there as an assistant coach, you just pick up on different cues.
Sure.
And definitely. And then in the youth game too. I mean, I know we're talking about assistant, but also coaching at the same time. A lot of assistant coaches at the college level or other levels, might be head coaches in some youth programs or youth leagues. So just, you're just every day dealing with referees. So you probably pick it up, definitely.
Which is something that I think officials don't always recognize. We think that the coaches we're running into, even at the youth level, we feel like, they're professional coaches, they've got it all figured out.
Yeah.
By no means is that the case, right? You're learning what you're describing is you're learning all along the way. You're probably still learning about what it means to be a coach and how to interact with officials and what it means to coach players. So understanding that, like, okay, you know what? They're still trying to get things figured out. Just like we're still trying to get things figured out.
100%.
You know? So you're able to then pick up on all sorts of things relative to what eventually shaped you to then step into a head coaching role. And we could talk about that experience for a long time because you guys found some really quick success at a really young program, right? Brand new, right? When you were there.
Brand new program.
But as far as, for the sake of our discussion today, as far as interacting with officials, what posture did you adopt and why?
Yeah, it kind of, I changed, and it morphed as my experience. And like how you finished off the last one, we're talking about how, you're learning how to have conversations in relationship with officials. As a first-time head coach of a collegiate program, I morphed and I developed because, coming into a brand new program, especially, I know my experience in Arizona was, you're trying to control everything, right? Because you're bringing in players, and, it might be a young team, so you're having to, really dictate and walk guys through every aspect of getting ready for a game. And so then, therefore, you step into a game day environment. And in the first, couple of years of being a head coach, I was still trying to control every aspect of the game. So I guarantee you that I was way more verbal with officials in those first couple of years than I was in the last couple of years of being a head coach. Because I was trying to dictate every part of the game. If I didn't like that part of the game because I had a young team, I was trying to coach every moment of the game. And if I'm so engaged that I'm having a joystick and coach every minute of the game, I'm also seeing everything in every moment of the game. And if there's something that I feel the official might have missed or needs to pay, more attention to, in my opinion, it's just coming right out of my tongue at the same time because I probably just told my player he needs to rotate and shift and move and press and drop. And I'm like, and that's a handball and he needs to move. He's offside, and so I think a lot of times when you see coaches who are joysticking, which in an early program I had to do a lot of so we could fabricate success and not allow it to happen. But I think when you have a young team or you're joysticking, I know I was way more verbal with officials than I was when I had a maybe more mature team where I wasn't having a joystick and be vocal in every aspect of the game.
That makes total sense. If it's already coming out of your mouth, then it's like your brain isn't stopping the rest of it, right? It just stream of consciousness. It just keeps going. That makes total sense to me. But
so as a referee, when you see a roster full of freshmen, you're probably going to get talked to.
That's right.
Quite a bit in that match because you see that's all freshmen and sophomores.
Yeah. Well, and I think as a referee, for us, like doing our homework, we know if you've had a team that's had a really rough year or that's really young or things like that, you're going, okay, well, some of this might be misdirected anger today. Which doesn't necessarily give someone an excuse, but it at least
gives you a lens.
An understanding of, well, maybe this isn't totally directed at me. Okay. So you had that kind of approach on the collegiate side, and we'll get at some of these other questions we'll connect with at different levels. But you then move back now into working with youth soccer full time, and you've been able to coach, and the teams you've coached have been very, very successful, winning some significant hardware over the last couple of years. What has it been like moving then from college down to youth relative to interactions with officials? Has that changed?
Yeah, no, it has changed.
Okay.
I think it's an opportunity because just different places I was able to coach at. I've also been blessed to be in front of a lot of experienced and professional referees. And so sometimes moving over into the youth game, you get guys who are trying to get there.
Right.
And so as for me, I've been able to take more of a posture and a lens of maybe trying to find, even as a coach, educational moments. We're having to sit back and say, hey, this guy, if he's willing to be out here and he's been selected to be a part of, let's just say, the state tournament, well, there's some promise to this young official, for example. How can I help him at the same time? It doesn't mean I'd sit there and we'll I say to them, like, hey, you know what? I think you might want to look at that one next. Think about that one next time. You know, and I don't know how that comes across as maybe now an experienced coach to an official, but there's opportunities at the same time though to give affirmation. Is where I've tried to do this last year with my relationship with officials, of to say, hey, you know what? I think you did a really good job there.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, and some of that has just gone off of what the state association here in Kansas is trying to do and be proactive and putting it out in front of coaches about trying to build that relationship. And so I think a lot of it's just been done because of the alertness to it.
Yeah.
To see it. But yeah, I mean, I think there's also, and I think we might talk about this in a little bit, and we alluded to it before we started, but there are also some pet peeves of like, okay, young guy, if this is really what you want to do, then this is how you need to walk up to a field, you know. And so there are some aspects in the refereeing side that coming from the college scene, and I see even in youth players, youth coaches, youth officials, where it's like there's a professionalism that has to exist if you want to try to do anything with this.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that would we'll get to pet peeves in a minute, because that's going to be a rather epic segment. At least I hope. Maybe it'll be terrible. I don't know. But there is.
I don't have too many, so I might have. Don't get your hopes up.
All right, fine. Yeah. From a coaching perspective, then, what makes a good official? There's a lot behind that.
That is a big question. Yeah.
Maybe just general concepts or things that you're like, that usually contributes to a good official.
Yeah. So one thing maybe I can tell you what I would see at the college game. This might help. What I would see at the college game, where officials I feel like are respected, seasoned officials at the college game that I experienced as a head coach, and then what I think is missing come the youth game. That might help.
Absolutely.
What I see, because that comparison could help. So.
They can always fast forward if it's terrible. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you guys can cut it all out. So this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm good with it. So no problem. Won't hurt my feelings.
We're good.
Yep. You might just delete this whole thing. That's all right. But for me, it's what makes a good official, and I kind of walk through the game experience, is building a relationship with the coach before the whistle blows. And I think that's one thing that makes a really good official to start off a game. One thing I notice sometimes in the youth game is that the first interaction I have with an official is when something happens in a game. Yeah. And maybe it kind of goes into some pet peeves, but if I don't know who you are, I can't talk to you about the weather, whatever it might be. If I can't establish the relationship before the game, it doesn't feel right going into the game. And maybe that's coming from a collegiate standpoint where you get some sort of communication with the referee before the game happens. So I think a referee what makes a good referee is someone who can establish a relationship, allow themselves to be human in that moment, in that relationship, and then also understands the temperature of a game. And this might open up a can of worms, but for example, understanding the temperature of a game. As a coach, when I know when a referee is being assessed, because their lack of willingness to understand the temperature of the game, because they want to be so perfect on the rules of the game, especially younger officials who are, maybe not a seasoned official who might just feel confident in who they are and what they provide, but wants to follow the rule of the game. But you see that a lot of understanding the temperature of the game. Is it, a good referee understands that, right? They understand, they do their homework like you talked about. They understand that this team hasn't won a game in the last 5 games and they've been freaking pounded on the whole time, right? And this team is maybe already qualified for, the conference playoffs, and this is their last game of conference. And so maybe I should, right or wrong, I should probably maybe protect this team who's qualified, has more season to play. This team I know has nothing to play for, and they're just pissed off, and so they're kicking everybody in sight. So what makes a good referee is understanding that the temperature of that game, right, and not coming in and like allowing the game to be really loose, and it's like you're worried about your players not being able to perform. You have an opportunity to win a conference championship, and this team is kicking the piss out of you, and the ref has no clue that they have nothing to play for, and they don't manage the game to understand the temperature. So. And then the last thing I'd say is what makes a good referee in generalities is someone who is approachable or at least willing to let the coach know he's being heard. And to me, it's sometimes, and again, there's extreme situations. I understand if you're refereeing your third game of the day and it's 115 degrees outside.
Right.
Probably don't care
Right.
what's going on. You're trying to get to the referee tent, get a Gatorade.
Yeah, get me out of here.
Get out of there.
Right.
I get it, you know.
Right.
A lot of times coaches, that's their second or third game of the day too. But,
Right.
You know, but I think that, yeah, it makes a good referee is being vulnerable enough or confident enough, probably is a better word, to receive information.
Yeah.
And show that you're receiving the information, and then you can do whatever the hell you want with it.
Yeah, right.
You know, so.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. That's good stuff. Before we get into kind of the pet peeve type thing, I'm curious, one question I sent you in advance would be, is there value in having youth soccer players get certified to officiate?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yes.
Yes.
100%. Every player, you know, I think maybe this is maybe not realistic, or maybe it can be realistic, but I think every player at some point in their youth journey, we have to somehow as clubs find an opportunity where at least every player has to go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be phenomenal because it allows that relationship to be more understood on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think it gives then players the opportunity to understand moments of the game, because I've coached college guys who are all American and they didn't know the rules of the game.
Right.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, they're phenomenal players, talent, like great talent, but you know, they're asking for something. You're like, dude, put your hand down. That doesn't exist.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
like stop. And this guy's first team All-American,
Yeah.
drafted and going to MLS, and you're like, put your hand down, man. That's not even a rule.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think that's we probably do need to educate, and we can educate players along the way, and it would just make it better where, there's a better understanding. So I think absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
I think every player at some point should have to go through that system.
You know, I think everybody, if you're a passionate fan of soccer, grown up playing it, I think you should have to coach and referee at some point.
Yeah.
Just to get, and I think there's a lot of value. We have not a lot. We have a handful of guys that will come from the coaching side to officiating, or will officiate a sport that they don't coach, maybe, or something like that. Yeah. But I don't know enough referees that are willing to maybe step into the shoes of coaches, because I think a lot of what we're running into, right? We get out there is it's our roles are not, I mean, they are different, they look different, but they're not that different, especially at the youth level. Yeah. They're not that different. And what we're struggling with, not just between coaches and officials, but spectators and officials, or even, this is going to get weird, but broadly in our culture, we have an inability to withhold judgment and allow ourselves to walk a mile in the other person's shoes. And we really struggle to understand the vantage point and perspective. We think way later and we act first, and the words come out of our mouth, and we have an inability to put ourselves, and I see it, there's times when, and it helps when you officiate for a long time in an area, you get to know, like, I feel like I know a lot of the coaches at the high school, college, and youth level around here. And there was one time in futsal a couple of years ago where I saw a dad, and was the referee too, and I hear this dad just he's getting angrier and angrier with the coach. And it wasn't me. I mean, I thought, man, if I screw something up, is this going to get directed at me? But I wanted to, and I couldn't make it over. I almost went over because I knew the coach. I won't say who it was, but I knew the coach, and I wanted to like beeline after the game, be like, get ready. That guy's coming for you, bro.
He would have appreciated that probably.
Right, but it was like,
found him at some point.
And I could hear him getting angry. I'm like, we're not that dissimilar, right? Like this is we're all in it for.
There's constant judgment being given on both the official and the coach.
Yeah.
And then especially don't get on a soapbox and we can keep moving forward, but especially in the youth game where a lot of parents might have an inability to they don't want to put blame on their kid. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. I have kids. I mean, they're perfect, you know?
Right. That's what I've heard.
They don't make any mistakes or anything. No, they're angels, you know? Yeah. And so therefore there's a lot of, you know, wanting to find and place the blame somewhere. It's either with the officials, with the coach. But we definitely live in the same lane when it comes to that. Yeah. Especially on game day.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that from coaches and parents, right? My son would never have said that.
Oh, he'd never say that.
Well, your son did say that. Yeah.
He didn't kick that kid when he was on the ground. He would never do that. He's not a violent kid. No.
Well,
never.
let's turn to the video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let's see what the video shows us.
Yeah.
Look for what's behind curtain number 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so the long-awaited pet peeves. All right.
Okay.
So this is kind of one of the questions that you advanced was, what frustrates you the most about officials? But let's talk about what are the things that really, I mean, we'll alternate. We'll go one-on-one.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so you go first. You're gonna go first on what is a pet peeve that you've seen over the years about the way an official has acted, something he said, he or she has said, whatever.
All right.
I gotta think of mine.
Oversized referee uniforms.
Oh. What do you mean?
When a referee shows up in a XXX and he's a small.
Oh. So just maybe appearance?
Yeah, there's appearance. Yeah, there's multiple things in
Okay.
appearance, but appearance definitely.
Okay.
That's when you're a high level game, you're walking into a conference championship or a state cup final, or it doesn't really happen, but sometimes you walk up and you see a referee walk up and forgot his uniform and he's wearing a XXX and he's a small and lacing up his hiking boots to get out there and officiate a game. That's when you just
you're in trouble.
done. Yeah.
This actually brings up a good question. Well, at least I think it's a good question. But there are times when I've watched games where a referee that I know is not good, and I'll see them go out, and I'm like, the coaches are just sitting there watching the game happening, and then I'll see a referee go out who I know is really good. And the coaches are all up and engaging and complaining about different things. And my thought is it just that they know what they have and that yelling is going to be completely worthless?
100%, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
that just confirmed a suspicion.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's a coach, right? So a coach, is not going to yell at a player if he doesn't know that. He's not going to, hey, Johnny, you got to play that ball 40 yards. When Johnny can't play that ball 40 yards,
Right.
You're not going to waste your breath. It's the same thing with officials. Yeah.
But I guess that'd be my pet peeve, is that there are times where I will see coaches laying into a referee, not laying in, but complaining about stuff to a lot that I'm like, listen, we all know this is one of the best crews you're going to have this year.
Yeah.
So take it down a notch.
Yeah.
That's one of my moments where it's like,
I would say, it's probably, I can understand that frustration, but I would say, if you're aspiring to be a great referee, would you prefer that over a ref than a coach just being like,
absolutely.
No, that's always down. I'm sitting down.
Right. As long as it's not inappropriate, but if it's like, if we're having an exchange, they're getting after it, all that kind of stuff, then you're like, okay, at least I know that they haven't given up. Yeah. Because the other side is if I don't hear anything, it's probably.
And you missed one. Like as an official, your referee, you missed one.
I have
you don't
never
hear from
experienced
the
that.
Okay, yeah.
I know others have.
It probably doesn't exist.
Yeah. Right. Others have, but I've never felt that. So,
yeah.
All right, do you have another one?
The 60-yard call.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, that's brutal.
Like a penalty from the other side of midfield.
Oh man. Oh, absolutely. That's like that will fire up a coach so fast. When you see a call made, and you look back and you're looking to see where the official might be. Oh, that will make your blood boil so fast as a coach.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Massive pet peeve.
I should change that then.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least get it within 55 yards.
I'll try.
That's Gordie's MO.
That sounds like a lot to ask, but I'll work on it.
60 yards.
Yeah.
Pull out the sniper scope to try to make a call on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can be as patient as I want all game, but I see that.
But that
I can't help. I can't sit back and say, you're doing a good job out there, buddy. Keep it up.
And we will tell it to our officials, right? Like if you hustle and run and act like you want to be there, I'm talking about baseline, like youth games and things like that. Like you will get less crap.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's just
no. As a coach, if I don't agree with something, but I see that the referee is right there, I got nothing to say.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I might say like, "Are you serious?" or something like if I feel strongly about something. But I can't sit there and argue the call. If they're right there, I'm like, well, you're there. You know, we saw it differently, but you were there. So I will be very short-lived. But if it's 60 yards away, 50 yards away, oh, it's not short-lived.
No.
Yeah.
And probably rightly so,
Yeah.
right? Absolutely.
Just transparently. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to be transparent. Okay, me. I've got a couple. One would be to talk about, to go to your point of, because I'm one of those guys that really tries to, for me, establish that rapport before the game.
Yeah.
Like, and I've done that with basketball and with soccer, any sport that I officiate. For me, and I get crap from some of my peers, because like, what are you trying to do? You trying to earn your votes or what, you know, and that kind of thing. It's like, no, why wouldn't you start off on a good foot? Why would you not take everything you can to try to start on a good foot? Because I would, and I had a basketball official tell me years ago, don't let the first interaction be the coach be negative, with the coach being negative.
Yeah.
Never let that be a foul or something that's going on.
Yeah.
But for a pet peeve of mine would be, I've had examples where I've gone up to coaches before games and they just don't. Like, it's just,
They want nothing.
They want nothing to do with me. And I'm a very nice person.
Yeah.
I'm a very...
You're approachable.
I'm approachable. I'm very attractive.
That's what I meant by approachable.
Oh, that's what you meant by, physically, built well, you know, just stop. And no, but like to just totally get blown off, I'm like, and honestly in my mind, I'm like, well, now I just have cards with this person. Like, I can't talk to you. Same thing with player. Like if a player's going to blow me off when I'm trying to manage them with just being like, hey, can we just have a quick conversation? Because I'd rather not give a yellow card for something. Yeah. But if a player's going to totally blow me off, then they've completely undercut half my toolbox. Right, and now all of a sudden we just have cards, you know. So it's kind of, that's my same thought process with a coach. Now, I don't think I don't look for the first opportunity to go. But I definitely feel like, oh well, this channel of communication is closed.
Yeah, I think Can I give some advice on that?
Yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah. So, in my experience as a coach, I've been kind of put in that place where if a referee comes up and if he engages in conversation, whatever it might be, you know, whatever, but if he can give me specific things about the season that I'm in, like, hey, it looked like you had a tough one a couple days ago, right? And then that way I go, hey, you know what, you know, this guy knows what he's doing. All right, I can. It might crack me open because a lot of times you understand you might not be able to talk to that coach, but that coach might be on the hot seat. This game might be make or break for they're going to win conference, not win conference. You know, qualify for it. He might have just had a conversation with his AD like 12 hours ago.
Totally.
So when you come up to that coach and you just cold silence killer.
Right.
You know, there could be a reason, but I think if you as a referee say, hey, look like last night you had a close one. Went double overtime, huh? Two good teams going at each other, then break into it more specific of something that relates directly to him on the season. I've had that happen, and I've been like, oh wow, this guy's doing his homework, and it actually puts me in a place where I go, this guy's a pro, you know, he's professional, he's done his homework,
right?
So
you try this one on for size for an introductory conversation. Okay, we're gonna do this. Are we ready? We're rolling.
All right. I don't know.
Okay, I did this one last year. And I will do it, and then I will tell you how it was received.
All right.
Okay? Yeah. So
I'm coach?
You're the coach.
Okay.
So I walked over to the coach, and this was a women's college game. And I walked over to the coach, and we started, and he was friendly. So try to be, I know it's hard for you, but try to be friendly. Okay. Yeah. So he was friendly, and I walked over and said, hey, coach, how you doing?
Oh, we go back? I'm doing good, Gordie. Thanks, man.
Good. Yeah, good. Hey, so we go through some different conversations, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. And so I said, what are you guys wearing today? What are your kids? And so he says,
white.
White. Yeah. And I go, okay, gotcha. I said, guys, we're trying to figure out what color we're going to wear. But at this point, we might have conflict. Coach, we might be skins today.
That'd be hilarious. Did he not laugh?
He loved it.
He loved it. That's good.
He loved it.
Yeah, that's great.
He loved it. He looked at me and he loved it. He started bursting out laughing and I said, but there is going to be too much jiggling from me in the middle. So I said, in that sense, we're probably going to have to put a shirt on.
Yeah.
And so then when we came back out and we had shirts on, he was like, He gave me one of these.
Yeah.
But
That's great.
I'll be honest, and I don't do that every game. It just came out with the conversation we were having, and I botched the whole
You don't
thing.
not
but-
wear a shirt every game?
Not typically before halftime.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
warming up without a shirt.
exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to warm up with it, but no. Like I don't lead with those kinds of. But if you can find those moments to leverage your personality, humor, or something. Like we try to talk to our officials about this. Like now, that guy seemed like a pretty chill dude anyway. But we had zero problems, right? Because he felt like, and when he did have questions for me, like we had already opened that kind of, thing. So.
No, that's good.
Anyway, all right. It's to you now, I think.
Man, let's see. Peeve. And maybe this is top, but if there's been a cordial first half, no issues, like you said, great communication, but there's something that you want to talk about just going into halftime, and then just being completely ignored. Going into that will change as a coach for me. I've changed like, listen, man, I've been really good to you all half, and you've done a good job, but all I want to have is just a quick 5-second conversation or get explanation, and you just, just ignore me. That's a huge pet peeve as a coach. When I feel like you've been but you've been acting appropriately, you've been having a great demeanor, great conversation throughout the game, and you just want something extra going into halftime, just an explanation of something or a question, and it's like, nope, not now. And you're going like, that'll set a coach to be a little bit more vocal second half.
I'd be curious if the college, I don't know college rule off the top of my head for what that is, but I know in the IFAB laws of the game, you're not supposed to confront a match official.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
But I think practical officiating would say, we're coming off the field, and like you said, now if I've had a coach who's just been all over the place, then it's like, you burn that bridge, right? But like you've been cool the whole time, and you're just kind of walking over, you got a quick, what do you got, man? We've got a few minutes here, that kind of thing. I think that's where you have those moments where you kind of bend it a little bit, even though technically, but if this is going to help us to maintain a good rapport during the game, I can see that.
That might be a little nitpicky, but it's more like, come on, we can have a really quick conversation.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
You almost feel when you get ignored like that, especially in the middle of the game, maybe I'll take that pet peeve and say when you're ignored, when you're not acknowledged.
Right.
I know a lot of times when officials, referees will, especially if they're just heard from the coach all day, they're going to sit there and look at the game and just hear this going here. Yeah. That's just going to get a coach more fired up. Right. I think, in my opinion, when you are purposefully ignored, and maybe I'd use halftime, maybe that's an example, but probably the bigger picture is when you're just completely ignored. Right. You're like, that's a pet peeve. That's bad. Even just give one of these, even though in the back of your head you're like, shut you stupid. Right. And every other word's going through the back of your brain. Right. What I might be thinking. Just some advice, at least just acknowledgement, but being completely just, cold-shouldered. That's a pet peeve. Yeah. Well, is it kind of like PTSD, like your relationship with women before you got married? Yeah, exactly. Just getting ignored constantly. Just nothing coming back. Right. Exactly. I get that. But sometimes I find the one ref or official that will give me attention. There it is. Yeah. Oh boy. Whew. All right. Back to me. Oh man, there's so many. No, there's really not. I would say, I know there's people watching or listening to this that are like probably screaming them at the right. They're like, we're forgetting one. Yeah. I would say one of the phrases that really gets me is when I hear "how many" from a coach. Yeah. And especially when it doesn't make sense. Like how many when it's relative to like, that player has been fouled a few times, we're moving towards persistent, I'm aware of it. Yeah. But I had a game at a school that we both know very well a couple years ago where I was an assistant referee and an assistant coach yelled how many on the first foul of the game. That's hilarious. And I was like, did you say one? Did you say one? I was the AR and I was down the line and I was like, yeah. But like some of those comments were, so let's broaden it to comments that just like don't make sense. For me, I have, like even from players and coaches, if there's something where it's like, we know the calls that we A, screwed up on or B, are very controversial, right? Like where I know it's tight, but you could see either vantage point. I expect you to say, I expect to hear something, right? Yeah. And you're like,
Really? Nothing? Okay, we're gonna keep going, right? Or but there's moments in the game where you expect to hear that.
Yeah.
There's moments in the game where you're like, wait, really? There's a coach last fall that went berserk when we told his player that she could not be involved in the drop ball. We're like, listen, we haven't had contested drop balls for 2 years now.
Yeah.
Like, and this was a Division II college coach that had been coaching collegiate soccer for 30 plus years. And he's going nuts. And I was the AR, and I looked at his assistants and I said, one of you guys needs to go help him.
Yeah.
And they all blew me out. You don't talk about it either. Okay. He ended up getting a yellow card. It's just, I guess for me, maybe more broadly, pet peeve is the moments where it's like, really? Like that's what we're going with just for the sake of like either digging or trying to establish, see how, is this person going to, I don't know. But
So there's how many? What are the other?
Let's see. There's how many. There is, that's their first foul.
First foul.
Like that one's always fun. Like players will say, "This is my first foul." It's like, well, you broke his leg.
Yeah.
The
ambulance is driving on the field.
Yes,
right now.
I don't care. So that's one. Let's see. What else are?
Call it both ways.
Yeah,
that has to be a good one.
If I hear that from a coach, you kind of, yeah. I mean, if a coach straight up says call it both ways, I know that the level of education for that coach feels low.
Yeah.
Because
you automatically put them in a box.
You do, because like there is a way to ask that, to say like, hey, we're not getting the same thing on this end.
Yeah.
I understand the spirit of that, but call it both ways is such an overused, but like to come at it from like, hey, I understand that could be a foul, but it doesn't feel like we're getting this over here.
Yeah.
That's to me a fair, and I'm like, okay, I got you on that, I'm trying to think what else I hear that really just, well, there's certain coaches that have phrases that are sometimes like, that we even joke around. There's a few coaches that have certain phrases that you're like, oh my gosh, and not even directed at us, but we can't say that because they
know.
They would know.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think, you guys have any camera people? Is there any that coaches say that like comments and things that were kind of like, oh my gosh, we can't handle, like it just, we can't. The one that used to really like dig at me but doesn't bother me anymore.
Are you the hometown referee?
Oh yeah, well that stuff is always
That's a good one.
like those like that, but that starts to get into like questioning integrity, which is like stupid. But the one that used to really get me for some reason but doesn't anymore is you're better than that.
Oh really?
I don't know why.
Really?
But especially if it was a coach that we'd had an established relationship, and they'd be like, it's like, Gordo, you're better than that. And I'm like, I don't know. And especially if it was a play especially if it was one where like, I know I'm better than that,
Yeah, like you're doubting yourself or could be.
That one, 50. But it doesn't get me anymore. I don't know. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other little coach quibs that you kind of hear that are just like, I don't know. You got to be kidding me. Some of those like exasperated comments that they're not really irritating, but they're ones where like I have to bite my tongue because I want to yell things back.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. There are our pet peeves. We're gonna cut it off there. That's our pet peeve segment. Hopefully that lived up to the hype.
Yeah, maybe. Probably not.
Probably not.
No.
All right.
There's probably people out there going, like you said, listening, going, what about this? What about this? What about this?
Yes, exactly. Anyway, so kind of final question. How do you see the role of officials and coaches? Well, the question I sent to you in advance was, what do you see the role, or what role do officials play in the youth game? Let's zero in on that. But in soccer in general, but in the youth game, what role do you think that they play? And then how can coaches and officials be on the same team in that goal?
Yeah, I think that, I saw that question. I thought about it for a little bit. And it's like, I think one thing where I think officials can help with in the youth game and their role in it is understanding that we're still trying to get kids to fall in love with the game. Mm-hmm. And we're also still trying to educate kids at the same time. And so I think a lot of times, what makes a good official referee in a game is one who's willing to explain himself. because these kids are still learning.
Right.
And I think that taken well, not taken well, I think where referees play a role in that youth game is helping continually to educate the players
Right.
on the game, on demeanor, on understanding that they're still in their adolescence. They're still learning. They're still, at the same time, they don't have the same emotional filters that you and I do. They haven't developed those yet. Those wires haven't become concrete yet, and some of them don't even have those wires.
Right.
We've all come across those players and coaches and everybody, but I think it's understanding that it's with players, the referees can help in understanding the development of the human at the same time. Like, hey man, just understand that most officials, if you respond that way, it's not going to go well. And they stay calm and they go, you don't talk to somebody that way. I understand you're frustrated, but and then keeping that calm demeanor and then not only helping the game go along, you're helping the kids still stay present in the game and not go sideways or be frustrated or lose it. But having those players stay present in the game, start to build a relationship with officials on the field as well. But you're also helping that kid understand a learnable moment. And I think a lot of times officials can really play a role in the youth game of finding those learning moments. Just as a coach, I'm trying to find those learning moments.
Right.
You have a player who says something to a player on the other team in front of you, and you can easily go, you're off the field, blah, blah, blah. You go, hey, listen, man, we don't talk to the other team that way.
Right.
And then they hear you say it in that demeanor, it's way easily received than them wanting to come back with, again, their non-emotional filter that they don't have it. It's just going to escalate it. It's going to you're putting gunpowder on the fire, at some point. So sometimes I see, referees maybe inadvertently put gunpowder on a fire and it just blows up. And they're like, oh, now this kid's sideways. So of course the kid's sideways because he can't control his emotions. He's a kid, we're trying to get them to a place where they can,
Right.
And so I think that again, back to where the question is, and I'll say it again, is I think referees can help participate in games in developing humans. And not just being reactionary to a soccer player.
Right.
If you maybe, I don't know, but as a referee, if you see this, this kid that you're, in front of you, if you see him as like, I'm trying to help that kid be a better human being instead of I'm just going to be reactive on his demeanor and behavior on the soccer field, maybe you approach it differently.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the role is maybe lost at times, where it's a very reactive environment, instead of referees coming in proactively saying, okay, I'm going to help a kid become a better human being today, and just helping him correct himself and find a learning opportunity and a learning moment. I think that's where the role for a referee is in the youth game.
That's fantastic. Really good stuff. That's worth rewinding. If you've been fast forwarding through things, here's a rewind moment. Matt, thank you for your time, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. This
Thanks
has
for
been
having
awesome.
me on, guys. Appreciate it. This is cool.
Stuff. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back with more dynamite Check Complete podcast content. The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck, we can help. Excited to sit down with Austin Ardrey, the CEO, founder, guru, czar, king of RunninRef's. I think that's probably not the official title. A couple of those were the official titles in there, but excited to sit down with Austin today virtually to chat about his organization that he has got up and running and providing services to sports officials across the board. One of those sports being soccer. So Austin, we'll just start. How are you today, my friend?
I'm good. How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm good. So glad you could make some time to do this. We've had you actually come up to Kansas City. You made a trip up our way from Dallas, and just a quick jaunt up the road. You were in the neighborhood, and did a little bit of a training with some of our officials a couple weeks ago, whenever that was. Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and it was wonderful. We've seen some of your work on social media and the presence that you've provided there on Instagram and on Facebook, and we'll include those links and the handles and all that kind of stuff in the bio of this video, and we'll promote it through our social media as well. So those of you watching or listening to this can engage with that. Make sure you follow his account and engage with what he's doing, and he'll provide some more opportunities and ways you can get involved with his program. But we got to see it firsthand, and it was exciting. I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of our officials feel like that, and I think officials in general feel a level of neglect as far as, whether that's their own choosing, that they don't invest in themselves to better themselves, that there might be resources, but designated things that can help officials be better at their craft. And so, excited to have you on the podcast to talk about what you're doing, to promote some of what you're doing, and hear your story and how this got started. So let's start with that. Who are you? And then if you want to, you can go straight into how you got started with RunninRef.
All right. Well, my name's Austin Ardrey. I'm the CEO of RunninRef. So we are based out of Dallas, Texas. All right. I spent 9 years as a collegiate strength and conditioning coach, moving all across the country. Loved it. Still love training. Got tired of moving everywhere. So I picked up and moved to Dallas, Texas. A few months into being in Dallas, Texas, my college strength and conditioning coach reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've got a couple of college football officials who, want to learn how to run better. They want to get prepared for the season. They've been battling a couple soft tissue or muscular issues here and there, and they want to know if we had anybody that could help them. So I reached out to you." And I said, "Hey, absolutely, I would be more than happy to." He said, "I don't know if you'll ever get paid from it. I don't know what'll come of it, but I think it's worth a call." So that's what we started at. So we started as a phone call. We met in a year and a half ago in person. I laid out a training session that looked like what I would take my, college athletes through. And I said, "Hey, we'll make some, differences for referees." And at that point, being on the sideline of college football games, sideline of college soccer games, baseball games, basketball games, you don't pay attention to the officials on the court or on the field. And that's sad to say, but you don't. You watch the ball, you watch the game, you watch the players. And in football, you make sure you keep the coaches off the sideline. That's more what we were known for. So had to learn a little bit about, what referees do, what positions they get into. And, you come to think of it, referees are athletes. So that training session aligned perfectly with what we were trying to do with those guys. We went through the training session, and my whole goal was just to teach them as much as I could. So we kind of broke it up into a 2-hour session. We went through, things like a dynamic warm-up, stationary movement prep, mobility exercises. We finished with, we did some sprint drills, specific conditioning that I catered to the movements that they needed to do on the field. We finished with some body weight exercises and stuff that they could do at home. And then we just sat and talked for a while, about recovery, mobility, just training in general. And, we continued to meet in person. So it became once a month. And then we added new, guys into us, so on and so forth. And here we are today with RunninRef, which is now a year-round app-based training program for officials. And it's not just for football officials. It's for we have soccer, basketball, and football programs, and they're specific to every sport. So it started as just a phone call a couple of years ago, and now here we are today to talk about it and, continue to teach officials everywhere, right? We came up to Kansas City and spent some time with you and your organization, and that's what we want to do, continue to reach other officials in other sports and be able to provide them some value.
Absolutely. I love the story of the way that got started, because I'm sure that there are probably a significant amount of officials, maybe even those watching right now, that have probably had similar questions that those two guys had that you started with. How can I take care of myself and maybe prevent injury by specific training, specific technique? How can I recover when, unfortunately, the inevitable injury comes? Or how can I extend my referee career? Because we see a lot of guys and gals that are hanging up the whistle earlier than desired. Because it becomes so ingrained in a way of life and who they are. There's a lot of identity tied into officiating. And when you have to hang that up because your body is telling you can't get up and down the floor, or you can't get up and down the field anymore like you used to, that's a hard message to hear. And so I know a lot of folks that have been in that conversation of just going, what can I do to address some of those concerns relative to my physical fitness and the way I run, the technique and all that kind of thing. And so what you're offering is is outstanding. So that's kind of how the inception of RunninRef. And I know I may have stolen some of your thunder in what I just said there, but what are some of the goals of what you're trying to do with this group, with this organization?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. So, initially, RunninRef was to teach and to provide a training program for these guys, right? So it started as, hey, we just sent some text messages back and forth. I want this to be as high quality of a program as possible. So it's app based. So if you're anywhere in the world, you cannot come to Dallas, Texas, and train with us when we train. It's laid out for you the entire week, right? So I wanted it to be as simple and effective for officials to use, right? If there's someone who reaches out to me from Atlanta, Georgia, and they would like to train or know something about training, I want to provide an avenue for them to do so, right? And, you mentioned it, early on, whether it be neglect for officials, or just not knowing, or maybe they didn't play a ton of sports growing up, or whatever the case may be. A lot of officials just don't know what their body's supposed to feel like, what it's supposed to operate like, and once again, sound running technique and movement technique, and what should I be doing in the gym? So I want to provide an avenue for them to have tips and tricks and methods and guides to, accomplish all of their dreams. And exactly what you said, to the point that I want to be able to help extend some careers for officials, or, there's officials that are in lower college levels that want to get up to professional levels. There's, guys that are in the high school levels and want to elevate themselves to collegiate levels. And there's a lot of things that go in that, right? I mean, I have to be healthy. I have to be able to move. The physical presence and the professional look of an official and a referee is critical as well. So, just giving people all the resources to do those things, and just changing their mindset behind physical fitness and what it is for referees. You're not just out there blowing a whistle, throwing a flag, pulling out a card. It's there's a lot more that goes into that. There's decision making. There's a ton of things that from the physical side can be taken away and just made simple for them. So that's what I want to do, is be able to impact them, extend their careers, make their careers better, help them elevate themselves, and really just accomplish whatever they want from a physical standpoint within the officiating world.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know there's a lot of folks that are beginning to salivate a little bit as they hear this, because there's, this is huge. And like you said, I mean, there's so much good in what you said there, but even just the as you try to move up, and so much of that is just the physical presence, right? And looking the part, and then being able to move well, to be able to, we talk about that a lot, that officials miss.
Nobody wants to be on the blooper reel.
Do what?
Nobody wants to be on the blooper reel.
No, that's right. No one wants to be. And the reason why, oftentimes the reason why bad calls are made is not because this official doesn't know what a foul is. It rarely is that the case. It is because they weren't in the right place at the right time and didn't have the right angle to make the correct decision. And so much of that is, can your legs get you there? Like, do you have the ability, the explosiveness sometimes to get you there? And honestly, that could be really, I know that, and so maybe has that been one of your challenges, to figure out what that looks like for each sport? Because I know there's some similarity, but the needs are a little bit different. So has that been a challenge for you as you try to write some of these plans and make it sports specific?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know if challenge, maybe. I think it's more or less learning and applying what's necessary at the right time, right? I mean, like I said, college football for 9 years. So you look at, and speed and on-field movement was my favorite thing. So obviously, here we go with RunninRef, right? Kind of just bleeds into that. But with that being said, helping and designing on-field programs for the collegiate teams that I worked with, right? You have, we'll just say football because it's simple, right? I have linemen that have different needs, from my mid-skill players in the center of the field, and then, my defensive backs. All skill levels are important to be able to move and to run, but at different capacities and different zones, different speeds, different movements, right? So everything is important, but the same thing with a referee. Every referee needs to be able to move. They need to be able to accelerate, to stop. They need to be able to get up to top speed and run with good mechanics. They need to be able to change directions. it's literally just putting it in place for the specific sport, right? So if you watch basketball officials have a much shorter court. They sprint, they stop, they sprint, they stop. Okay. Then you go on to, other sports, and the patterns may be different. There may be a little bit more shuffling in some positions within football. Within soccer, there's a little more of distance running, stop starting, so the games are a little different. I don't know if challenge, I think it's just applying it at the right time for the right sport, to be completely honest with you.
Sure.
Making that part important, right? People think physical fitness is, I'm just going to put my headphones in and I'm going to go for a run. Well, there's a lot of things that you need that aren't just straight running, right? I mean, the technical piece of that is important as well. The technique between slow paced jogging, the foot strike, the mechanics is vastly different from sprinting. So if we're talking longevity, staying healthy, and getting to the right spot, I have to be able to put my limbs in the right place at the right time to move with those velocities that I need to be able to move at on the field.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. That's amazing how that your background, especially like you described with football, has prepared you for that. Like you've having to tailor it to the different positions, which makes total sense to me. That's fascinating.
Yeah. You never know where you're going to end up in life. So everything's a teaching point, right? And college football and being a part of college soccer and baseball programs, I think did prepare me to be able to, give people these resources and the knowledge that I have accumulated over the years.
Right. Right. Very cool. So as far as ways, like I said, we will tag you in our posts, and we'll put your information in the description of this video, and folks can reach out to you directly, follow your accounts, all that kind of stuff, all that good stuff. But as far as how people can get involved, I know for me, I have cut the sleeves off of several shirts now to prepare to be involved in this. The steroids that I ordered, according to Amazon, will be here by Tuesday, because of the holiday. So what else do I need to do, or others need to do, to get involved in RunninRef?
Number one would just be committed, right? You mentioned it earlier as, officials need to take pride, and they need to, make themselves better. So you have to commit to something if you want to get better at anything. If I want to be a better painter, I have to commit myself, and I have to really work at my craft. In training, it's the same thing. So I think that folks need to just commit to themselves and what they want, right? So what do I want out of a program? I want to be able to be the best soccer official that I physically can be. Okay, here's a resource out here for you. Now you're going to do it, but you need to go all in on it. You can't second guess it. You got to just go. So ways that people can see exactly what it is. The social media pages show a lot. They do not show everything, but they show a lot, obviously, as much as we can showcase in the real time frames that they give us. But our website will give you a little more in-depth idea too. It'll kind of list out in some bullet points what you get within the programs, and you can find all those things on there as well. So that'll give you great insight into exactly what you're looking into and what you're looking at, and exactly what it's preparing you for, right? I mean, there's different tests within soccer that I have to, fit to perform. So FIFA standards and different fitness tests that every level goes through. So these things are built out to prepare you for those things as well. And I think the steroids that you ordered are just going to be right up your alley, and get you prepped and ready. So
yeah, I agree. I think it'll be, I'm going to be huge. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, no, very good. And your website, you can say that out loud here, but we'll link to it.
RunninRef.com.
RunninRef.com. There we go. Perfect.
Simple, straight to the point.
There you go. I'm going to buy the .org and just poach business. Is what I'm going to do. That neighboring username, just in case, or maybe .gov. I don't know. No. Okay. So very cool. So they can get involved with that. And the app-based thing is, we're in a world, right, where having that at your fingertips and what you've prepared is really cool. That's awesome. So that obviously broadens the audience and allows folks from all over the place to participate in this and connect with you, use the resources you've provided, but also you're a very accessible guy. If there's additional questions or concerns, I don't want to be speaking out of turn, but you're available for people for that, correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. Emails, easy. Social media, when I see the notifications, obviously the messages, I apply to them. That also gives me insight into more of what officials want and need as well, right? So created a video a couple days ago talking about shoe wear, though, that stemmed from a fellow official that had asked about shoe wear. Okay, created one yesterday, I think that was on a single leg squat. All right, well, that same thing, an official reached out and said, hey, need a little bit of feedback. I'm having some glute low back pain. Here's the exercises that I do, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of and, helpful. So it does help me create content, but it also helps you, right? The questions you ask are to help you. So I'm just trying to give that right back to you in the, best form that I can and show you, right? It's the power of video. I can show you instead of text as, could be muddled a little bit.
Right. Absolutely. And then, there may be opportunities if someone out there is listening that's in a leadership role in their group. Kind of depends on where you are and if it can work out in schedules and things like that. There could be potential for you to make an in-person visit or do some sort of collaborative work or training or things. I know that that's something that, may work for different groups depending on where they're located and that kind of thing. So it probably doesn't hurt to at least reach out and start the conversation and see if that could be something. I know we got some really outstanding feedback from our participants that we had a slightly smaller group, which made it very, for lack of a better word, kind of an intimate setting. And then folks are able to ask specific questions, pull you aside at the end and talk about, okay, all right, I didn't want to say this for everybody, but I've got this nagging, my Achilles or my calf or something. Do you have things? And you're able to go, yeah, here's some things that you can work on. Here's some things you can do to strengthen that. So really, really, really great resource that you are just who you are, but also what you're providing through the RunninRef program. So very exciting. Well, any other last words for the Check Complete podcast, Austin?
I'm just grateful that you had me on here. I'm very grateful that, got to get up to Kansas City and teach some officials and be in person with you. I think the power of being in person is incredible. So with that being said, that's the user experience of the app for anybody who, does join the program is to make it as much like in person as possible, right? To make it effective, simple, communicated well with you. But the in-person stuff is great, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing that with y'all, getting to talk and to teach. I really think teaching is what I like most about training, sharing things with people that I learned over the years and, that have helped me and other people. So, I think just reach out if you need anything, email. We can definitely set up Zoom calls or anything like that. I'm here to help. So if there's anything you need, feel free to reach out. Don't hesitate, and I'll see how we can work together and make this better and better for officials everywhere.
Awesome. Austin, you're the best. Thank you, man.
All right. Appreciate it.
The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck, we can help. This has been another episode of the Check Complete podcast. Thank you so much for listening, watching, whichever one you're doing. I mean, if you're watching, you're listening as well. But if you're just listening on wherever you are, thank you for that. Please make sure you follow us on. That sounds like we're begging.
Yeah.
A little bit begging. Let me start that over. I'll just say.
To.
Yeah, if you're interested in listening to the best podcast ever, right? That's how we started this episode. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you follow us on the YouTubes, like and subscribe. We're also on Instagram and Twitter at check_complete, on Facebook, Check Complete Podcast. So engage with us on there. We did not have a nerd out segment. We had our pet peeve battle. That was the version of the nerd out segment for this episode. We're going to return to nerd out in our next episode. But if you have items that you would like to hear us nerd out about, so we've talked about, what did we talk about? We talked about whistles. That's been it so far. Maybe by the time this airs, there'll be another episode that we'll have talked about something else. But anyway, if you have other items that you love to nerd out about as referees, gear that you are proud of, we know that we're a weird bunch and we kind of like what we have, our little things that we kind of geek out about. We want to hear from you. So slide into the DMs, send us something, a private message on Facebook, email info@checkcompletepodcast.com. We would love to hear from you and feature those things. If you have other ideas for segments and things like that, please reach out. Those are the things we'd like to hear from you. And make sure that we're making content that is applicable and exciting for our listeners wherever you are. So, Matt, thanks again for your time, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks,
Hope this was enlightening and educational as well as entertaining for you. So thanks again for engaging with the Check and Complete podcast. We will see you next time.